Depeche Mode have just released a new single from their up-and-coming Memento Mori album. This one called My Cosmos Is Mine. Let's talk about it. A warm welcome to you, my friend, wherever you may be in the world. Before we jump into today's content, I just want to make a quick mention and a shout out to a fellow member of this community and a big Depeche Mode fan, Dominic Winter, who's just lost his sister, Joanna Winterborn, at the age of 53. I just want to send Dominic my sincerest condolences from myself and this community to you and your family at this difficult time. Joanna leaves behind a daughter, a husband, and obviously a brother and a grieving family. So I wish you all the best, brother, and just know that this community is behind you. Lots of love. My Cosmos Is Mine is the latest single from the up-and-coming Memento Mori album, and it comes just on the backs of the first single, which was Ghosts Again. This is a very, very different type of song. And when you release an album, it's all about atmosphere. Now, I'm going to try and remain on topic here. To be fair, I've only heard this song a few times, so understand I'm going to be giving you my initial reactions. And of course, because this is a new song, it's obviously not ingrained into my psyche like many of the old classics are. So for that reason, I obviously do not know it that well. So I like to do videos when a song just comes out so I can give you my initial reaction. Now, I've often said that very often Depeche Mode songs, even though I'm a huge fan, very often their songs do not instantly catch me. I mean, even albums like Violator, Songs of Faith and Devotion, which are amongst my favorite, and there are many others, where upon the first listening, I'd hear a song and I'm like, because Martin's writing is often so strange and off the wall. However, once these songs grow on you, they get under your skin and into your psyche, and they just become a part of they become a part of you. So this song obviously is new, and I understandably have only listened to it about 5 times, but I wanted to give you my initial reaction on that, and it's quite nice to react on that. Speak to me in a year's time, my thoughts and feelings will probably change for the better or for the worse. But just off the bat, this is a very, I guess what you would say, a very strange, and I think the words strange and Depeche Mode go well together, but this is a very strange single. Not so much as when you're talking about Depeche Mode. I guess if you're talking about music and bands that are more commercial, this would be a rather strange sounding record. Now, I did say that Ghosts Again was probably one of the better Depeche Mode songs I've heard in the last 20 years. It instantly resonated with me. Now, it's a little bit different to my sort of favorite Depeche Mode songs. Ghosts Again does have a very sort of commercial kind of sound to it, but it is very sincere and very Depeche Mode. You can watch that video I did on Ghosts Again by clicking here or clicking in the description below. Certainly this track, My Cosmos is a completely different track. The emphasis on this track clearly being atmosphere. The first track, Ghosts Again, I really liked it. It had a real sincere kind of eyes wide open feel to it. It has a real it has a familiarity to it. Now, in that video, I pointed out how some of the chord progressions are very traditional, and I compared it to a lot of songs that are out there. So that song has a very familiar type of sound to it, albeit it's still very Depeche Mode, and I do really, really like it. Ghosts Again has a very sort of eyes wide open type of feel. It's more sort of in line with songs like, sort of Everything Counts. It's got that kind of open, eyes wide open. So it's kind of like, Everything Counts and songs like that. However, this song, My Cosmos Is Mine, The emphasis here is really on atmosphere. Now, Martin has always been a huge fan of atmosphere, and indeed, Depeche Mode have sort of paved the way, for the way electronic albums are made. So, what do I think of this song? Well, once again, it'll take a while to grow on me, but upon initial listen, I'm happy to say that I'm really excited about this album because from what I've heard so far, this is really, really going in the right direction. If you've been a member of my channel since the beginning, you will know that I've not held back on my criticism on the Spirit album. I'm a very honest person, and just because I love the band does not mean I love everything they do. And I've often said that they raised the bar so high, I felt that Spirit was not a bad album, but a disappointing album. And that's why I was very nervous when I heard they were going to do a new album. But, as I say, since hearing Ghosts Again, I was very, very excited. It's the most sort of optimistic song they've done in a long time, but it also has a sort of depth and sincerity to it. Don't be sort of fooled by which is quite sort of uplifting. It's quite uplifting, but it's not. It's got a sincerity, but a depth to it as well. Okay, I'm going off topic. My Cosmos is Mine, a very, very different type of song. As I say, a strange decision to release this as a single, but of course, if you're a Depeche Mode fan, you will know that there is nothing sort of traditional about Depeche Mode, and this has its roots in a lot of, I'm getting sort of Black Celebration vibes from this, but the strongest vibes I'm really getting are more sort of based on my initial reaction. As soon as I heard it, I went, oh, I'm getting strong Delta Machine vibes. Now, that's not a bad thing. Delta Machine was also one of my lesser favorite albums of the catalog. But this is a movement in the right direction. Now, having said that, this song is designed, I think, to be a little bit creepy. It's very discordant. There are many strange chords being used here, as Martin does. Now, I'm old school, so when I listen to an album, I want different atmospheres. And if you think of the classic Depeche Mode albums, how it would start in a certain way, then you have the drop, and then you have a sad one, and then an optimistic one. A classic example being the album Violator, one of their best albums, if not the best. Starting off with World in My Eyes, then going on to Sweet as Perfection. It gets really sort of dark, and then Reach Out, Touch Faith. Personal Jesus comes in and it lifts it again, and then it gets dark, much darker again when we get to Halo, and then it gets really, really sort of sad and emotional when we get to Waiting for the Night, and then Enjoy the Silence comes in and it lifts again. So there are these natural troughs and ups and downs with emotions as you want from an album, and that is why this track, being very, very different to Ghosts Again, I think it's interesting to see, because Ghosts Again was Depeche Mode being the most optimistic I've seen them in a long time, but also one of the most emotional songs I've heard from them in a long, long time. This one, however, has a very sort of unsettling feeling to it, and I think the production and the chords and everything lean to that. Now, this song, I feel, for me, it's quite difficult to listen to, not in a bad way, but it is, I feel, meant to be unsettling. Certainly when we get to that part where it goes, no more, no more, no war. I'm having to read the lyrics, by the way. It goes, no war, no war, no war. When it gets to that part, which is kind of like a bridge, it's really unsettling, and the choice of chords are very, very weird, which I'm going to demonstrate. Now, understandably, I have only just heard the song, so I haven't had much time to analyze it. It's very simplistic. There's a lot going on in the background, and it's very interesting to listen to. The emphasis here is atmosphere. But because the atmospheric elements and instrumental elements and stuff are sort of not very dynamic, they're not jumping at you, they're kind of in the background, this does give a lot of space for the voices. Now, there's a lot going on here. You might listen to it on first listen and think, okay, it's quite simplistic. It's not. There's actually a lot going on here. It's very cleverly blended and very well mixed and very, very well produced. as you'd expect from a Depeche Mode album. There's a lot of sort of that distortion that they're using, a little bit of that typical saturation, albeit, I said I was getting a bit annoyed with that oversaturation on the vocals. They're not using much of that here. There's a little bit of it. But I like the vocal sound. I like Dave's vocal on this. I like Martin's voice on this. There are elements in this song, and indeed in Ghosts Again, especially with Ghosts Again, Dave Gahan's vocal, there were real sort of moments of his sort of glory years. That kind of violated that kind of round, open, Dave Gahan, lower larynx position type sound. Okay, I'm just going to stop myself there. I don't want to segue into, vocal analysis there. But there are moments in these last two songs that are really nodding back to some of their best albums and songs. So I'm very, very pleased with this. And because of all my criticisms that I've had on Spirit, I'm glad to hear them with this, because this is definitely, in my opinion, quite a few steps up and a move in the right direction. So let's look at some of the chords of this, and I'm going to be reading them now. So I did look online to find some the chords for this, and understandably the song has just come out, so there's not many places that are giving the chords. Usually I would just play by ear, but I haven't had time because it's a new song, and there are sites that are giving some chords that I'm a little bit questionable on. So the chords I'm reading here are from a site which I felt the chords were the most sort of accurate as to what I can hear. They're not 100%, but just bear with me because I just want to use this to sort of flesh and outline the song. So straight off the bat, it's just hovering on this B minor. The bass line, I do love it. It's really sort of like, it sounds like a bass guitar being played. Once again, with Depeche Mode, it's very, very difficult to tell, but it has this kind of gritty, grungy gung 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 gung, and it's something like this. Not exactly, but the sort of general idea is. Something like that, with the main sort of hook or the main sort of part that sticks in your head being this. So it's understandably quite simple, but it has a little bit of movement. And Depeche Mode have always been very good at quite a few of their songs. Something will play and it will just be on the same chord for quite a long time. You're expecting it to sort of move to another chord, but it will just stay there. But it is because it stays on this B flat for such a long time. My cosmos is mine. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. So, just humming it there because I'm not familiar with the words really, but that is what I'm getting from it, is this na 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 na, and because the chords don't change, it just gives it that kind of hypnotic feel. So you've got this, let me read the word, shall I? Starting on the B minor. Now, there's not really a chord being played there. The chord is made up by the different instruments, which you might have one instrument playing, let's say a B, one playing let's say a D, and one playing an F sharp, and that will give the collective sound of a B flat. There's not necessarily a chord being played there, which is very clever. Erasure did a lot of that, and so did Gary Newman, and there are quite a few others. But in layman's terms, if we just demonstrate the shell chord on the B minor, it's don't play with my world, and it just hovers. Don't mess with my mind, and then you just break the sort of, I don't want to say the monotonous, but the sort of simplicity of that chord. You've got this bass line going. And that really gives it a little bit of movement and groove. So from the top, just using just a straightforward piano sound, so we're not distracted by synthesizer sound, and just using the outlining sort of shell chords. B minor, and I'm going to have to read it because I don't know it. As I say, I've only heard it about 5 times, and it's don't play with my world. Very hypnotic. Don't mess with my mind. Don't question my space-time. My cosmos is mine. And then you have like a interlude there. It does have some melody playing using some sort of pad type sounds, lots of analog type sounds being used, and the melody is something like that. Typical sort of Martin Gore minor key melodies, kind of like, the typical Martin Gore type things. Okay, then we're on to the second part of the verse, which goes once again on the B minor. Don't toy with my heart. Don't knock down my shrines. Don't alter my headlines. My cosmos is mine. Draws you in. It's very spellbinding, very hypnotic. Great vocal Dave is doing on this. Then we get to this part, which I don't know, I wouldn't call it a chorus. It's a bridge, I guess. And this is where it really goes, what the fuck? This is like where the Gorisms come in. Now, remember what I talk about when I say a Gorism. A Gorism is a phrase I coined to describe Martin Gore's songwriting, the way he always structures his melodies and chords. There's always something that comes in that's like, what the fuck? It's just with Martin, it's like, what? As typical Depeche Mode, and a typical Gorism would be something like, if we take Stripped. There it is. It's kind of like a clash. Musically speaking, apparently it's called a borrowed chord. It's where a chord or a note outside of the scale is being used to provide tension. Martin does that a lot, for instance, on Walking My Shoes. There it is there. Now, there are tons of examples, and another one being... You see, it's always something that comes from the left field, and you're like, "Oh my god, I wasn't expecting that." This song, especially, this is like the king of Gorisms. Starting on the bridge, and it's quite unsettling to listen to, and I think that is indeed the idea behind this. It sounds quite angsty and desperate. On the no war, no war, no war, it's almost just like chanty. It's like chanty, like a war cry. Like a battle cry. And that starts on this chord, which is an E over a G sharp, which is basically just the E over a G sharp there. I'm just going to expand it by putting in an extra note there. And it's as follows. It's no war, no war, no war, no war, no more, no more, no more, no more. No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear, not here, not fear. Not here, not here, no rain. My apologies, I don't know the words yet, but just looking at those chords, the way they move, this is classic Gorism. Just watch this. I'm going to do it without singing. Starting with the E over the G sharp, it's as follows. Listen to this. Goes to an F there, where you get a bit of sort of like a release. Watch this. Just watch how it plays with your emotions. Remember, this is with everything stripped away, and these are just the chords according to this interpretation. They sound right so far. I'm just a bit iffy on the last two chords. This is quite a difficult song to analyze because there's so many sort of layers. It's a tricky one because there's a lot happening, although at face value you don't hear much, but put some good headphones on and immerse yourself into this. This is a very, very, very well done song. Well done, guys. I'm very chuffed about this one. Okay, so starting with this bridge again, let's have a look with the E over the G sharp. Just listen to the feel of this. That's a real Gorism. F, and then it goes to this E diminished 7, which is just that, and then it ends on a B diminished 7, which is, see, this is real kind of head scratching stuff here. It really racks my brain, which is that. Now I'm going to play this bridge through just with shell chords, just on straight piano sound here. Close your eyes and just listen to the vibe of it. Classic gorism, and very, very unsettling. So in context, starting with the E over the G sharp, it's no war, no war, no war, no war, to the G, no more, no more, no more, no more, to the B minor, no fear, no fear, no fear, no fear, to a G, not here, not here, not here, not here, to an F where it kind of resolves. No rain, no clouds, no pain, no shrouds, and then to this E diminished 7. No final breaths, no seamless, what? No senseless deaths. God, I'm lisping there. No senseless deaths. And you know, if you are musically trained, like I'm not, as you guys know, I'm completely self-taught, so which means my explanations are always very simplistic because I'm not musically trained. But what I do know is that very often diminished chords are used to convey a sense of tension. Certainly in classical music, orchestra, or wherever. So a diminished chord is really just think of it as making the chord smaller, and augmenting it is making it bigger. Anyway, I'm giving far too much theory here. Just listen to this chord. So the E diminished 7, which is the part where it goes to no final breaths, no final breaths, and then no senseless deaths. Can you hear? It's completely discordant and unsettling. I've gone into a little bit more detail than I wanted to because I just wanted to give my sort of thoughts and feelings on this. As I say, listen to that and then just go to... It's a completely different vibe to Ghosts Again, but I'm sure we're going to have a lot of surprises. So, to summarize this song, well done, guys. I know there's a few people out there, the fans, that are saying, oh, I don't get it, I don't like it. There are people who do like it. I do like to summarize the experimental nature of this song. It's experimental, but it's not so experimental that it's going off the wall. There's still a lot of heart in this and a lot of sincerity. It's dark and there's angst. I do like the sound of it, and I could go into a lot more detail, and this was just meant to be a sort of initial reaction. So, well done, Dave Martin. I'm chuffed with what I've heard from you so far. So I do look forward to the third single, because usually in typical Depeche Mode fashion, they usually release 3 singles before the album drops. So it's up to you now, my friend. What do you think of this song? And remember, there are no wrong answers. Just be respectful and understand that people have their opinions. Not everyone's right. It's just an opinion. It's a little bit like attraction. I always say it. You can look at a girl and go, she's beautiful, and someone can go, no, she's not. You know, it really depends. Music and all emotions are subjective and personal, so we cannot disagree. We cannot hate on people for not liking something. Anyway, I'm getting too preachy now. If you enjoy the channel and you've not subscribed yet, please subscribe, because it helps me out a lot. If you would like an even more in-depth approach to what I'm doing here, be sure to check out my streaming site, watchvg.com, and join up there. It's a great community, and it's also a great way to help support me and my work and going forward. Lots of love, my friend, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Adios.